Walter White.
Walter White.
You know the
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Yeah, his story when he
the big science
experiment or whatever that eventually his partner took it and made it bigger, and he was not a part of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully Elon doesn't break bad. He's probably already
Elon is fine. He's got money. Hi, my name is Dagogo.
And I'm Tawsif.
And welcome to Through the Web, where we talk about all things tech, business, and internet.
And this week we're going to cover a lot of interesting stories. AI replacing jobs in some places.
Okay.
We're going to go into the very interesting Pentagon explosion image. So again, we're staying with the AI stuff. And maybe some stuff about Netflix password sharing, Neuralink, Elon Musk, the usual. Mm-hmm. But before that, how's the week?
It's been good. I've been... looking at a few interesting stuff online in terms of just interesting YouTube channels that I've never seen before. There's two videos that stand out to me a lot. So any of you out there who are a mobile gamer in the early 2010s probably would remember Jetpack Joyride. And also Fruit Ninja, I'm sure.
I know Fruit Ninja, but not so much the Jetpack Joyride.
Yeah, interesting. But so both of those games were basically more or less, there was a team, but spearheaded by the same guy. Mm-hmm. And obviously he made these games, but for a decade and a bit, he just kind of never said anything about it. And he just makes this one random YouTube video saying how I made Fruit Ninja. Because he randomly dropped it in a previous video that he made Fruit Ninja, just randomly. And everyone's like, what? What? So he full on just explained how it happened. And it was a really interesting story about just how the company was a bit under pressure. They had a lot of other projects going on. So this small team was just him and another guy that was the resources to work on this game. And they were just brainstorming ideas. And then he randomly came up with the idea of swiping. And he saw this commercial, I think, on a late night, advertisement or something about some swords or something. And they were slicing fruit, and it's like, that's it. We'll slice the fruit. So they came up with a prototype really quickly, within 2 weeks or something. And they're like, actually, this is really fun. So the rest of the team kind of came on a little bit. And then as soon as they released it, it was kind of slow, but then, it started picking up, and then, it just went crazy. And essentially they were like, the number one game was featured on the App Store. The team just, grew, and they were just raking in so much money. But I guess the sad thing about it, because you would think from making that you'd be set for life, you'd be rich, you could retire, but they hardly made anything. The company took all the money, and they just, they
they were just freelance developers who sold the concept to a company?
No, they were at the company.
So it was a gaming company.
Yes, they were employees at the company.
Right.
So they didn't really get the financial compensation for it, which, I'm not 100% sure how each of those arrangements work in gaming, but that was a little surprising. Not a bonus, no nothing, even though this game saved the company and made them.
That's why you got to read the contracts, man. Whatever you sign. But sometimes you don't.
You don't know. You're just probably not expecting a huge hit like that. So,
exactly.
Yeah. But it was a very interesting story. And there's this other YouTuber that I saw called Basically Homeless. And he's a combination of, do you know Gabby Bell at all? Or
rings a bell.
Drew Gooden?
Yeah, of course, Drew Gooden. Yeah.
So he's takes that kind of humor, but in the tech space, say... Not quite Marcus Brownlee, but Linus Tech Tips. Right. So it's those two things combined, and it makes this. Yeah, he's like a DIY guy, but he made this video about the cleanest desk setup, and it was literally invisible. So he built, it was one of those raising desks, the standing desk, and he built a keyboard into it that was completely flat. You could hardly see it, and then he also made I think it was infrared, a mouse that sensed his hand. He could click, but it was just air. And it was really accurate and everything as well. And then the screen was literally a projector with a piece of polycarbonate. So it was just floating in the air. So at the end, it was just this desk with this floating screen. It was just hovering his hand like this. And he made the whole thing. And I thought that was just absolutely amazing. His comedy, his brilliance in design, his brilliance in actually full on woodworking and, coding. He did all of this. and it didn't even seem hard. It was like seamless. So that's the kind of YouTuber where I'm like, this guy's going to be absolutely huge in the future, you know. So it's got 1.6 million at the moment, but it's just something to watch out for. I think it's brilliant. But that's a bit of what I watched.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you get up to? How's your week, etc.?
I mean, did the run.
Yep.
So those 12 kilometer, completed it. Took me an hour 30 something. The official time was a little longer. It was actually very, very cool. Great experience because, again, you've lived in the city. It was a very unique way to experience the city, which is what the run was about initially. And I think most of these, marathons or half marathons are built around that. You experience the city in a different light, and that was very cool. And then the worst part was, checking like others who did half marathons in like less time than yourself, and like, oh god, they're like professionals, they're like proper athletes. So
what do you expect?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the biggest learning with if anyone listening is going into these runs or something, obviously I'm not seasoned or anything, but the biggest learning I had with just this one run was that you can't really compare yourself to others. This is really a sport that's designed for you versus you. So if you set a record, your personal best, and then you start to beat that, and it's a different joy, which I thought I'd never get into.
That's good. Like widen your horizon, see what you like.
Yeah. And I guess everything I've been watching was around running as well. So there's really not much to report from my end. New topics, things are happening in the tech world. Stuff's happening. I'm just gonna go straight into it.
Okay. That was one of the weirdest segues.
Because there is none. Look, the biggest one obviously was the Pentagon story. Mm-hmm. And I know we're back into the AI stuff, but we have to cover this.
Yeah.
An AI-generated image appeared to show there was an explosion next to a building in the Pentagon, and it circulated on all social media platforms on Monday this week. And basically, once it started getting spread around Twitter, and it was obviously, through a lot of quote-unquote verified accounts, it created a brief dip in the stock market. So the way this thing panned out is that, the image being shared, people are not sure if it's real or not, and even before, really verifying. And I guess, how do you even verify in an online world? Previously, you'd look at, these news, I guess, media companies who've got official accounts on Twitter are sharing it, therefore it's more likely to be real. But now it was being shared around, and I think a lot of people just took it at face value, selling their stuff, and therefore there was a bit of dip into the stock market. So again, we spoke about the Pope image a few weeks ago. We spoke about other AI, like the Trump being arrested as well, and at that time we were like, oh, these are like small, harmless, fun stuff, and you just gotta wait for the nefarious stuff.
Yeah, you can see it.
This is the nefarious stuff.
Yeah, but for me personally, this one didn't really, I looked at it and I was like, that's fake, like straight away. Like, I think one, the smokes looked a little bit off, but two, there would be much more buzz on Twitter around it, like aside from just like people sharing the same photo. Like, it's hard to describe, but you can kind of tell when something's big is happening versus just a photo, or like people sharing the same thing and like there's not much info about it. And also it's also good to check external sites to see.
I think that first few hours, or like the first hour of something like this circulating, is the toughest to really understand. Because if you're online at that moment in time, because I was online, I got the news hours after, and once I woke up, it was hours after it already happened. It had been debunked, right? So for me, I got the tail end of the whole thing. If you're actively online at that point in time and you see people sharing, you're like, oh, what's the first 30 minutes or so? You're like, oh, what's happening? Is it? And then you start seeing others around the circuit also sharing the same image, especially people you would presume to be, potentially verified. It will cause that panic, and I think that's exactly what happened. Now, you could say you got to be better at understanding these images, and I think this is how it happens. Like these little incidents that hopefully train people to understand better how to differentiate.
Sorry, that just sparked a thought, because I think I was thinking about this line of thinking when this happened in general. So basically when there'll be this influx of people trying to trick people with fake images of terrorist attacks or blah, 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 blah. But then people kind of get desensitized to reacting at a knee-jerk pace to whatever they just see. And then essentially maybe it will form a disincentive for the people making it because it's like, oh, it doesn't really elicit a reaction anymore. So it could just be like a kind of weird symbiotic relationship between people and people viewing it and people making it. It's kind of like a feedback loop, if that makes sense, you know? So people just get, more used to just taking things a bit slower instead of reacting straight away. But I could hope that happens, but who knows, you know?
I think this was also one of the reasons why people were a bit skeptic about the whole Twitter Blue stuff, that anybody could pay to get verified, because people have to understand that things that happen on Twitter don't necessarily stay on Twitter. So a lot of people don't use Twitter, but then they see screenshots of verified accounts or quote unquote verified accounts on Facebook or on Instagram, and they consider that, you know, that person or that entity is somebody official or somebody that's coming from a credible source. So if people who don't use Twitter then see that image, you know, being shared as a screenshot on Facebook, they'll also likely think that it's verified, because there's now a gap between people understanding what a verified source is versus what's already happening in real time in Twitter. Even though it's very much open and people are doing it anyway within Twitter. A lot of people who use Twitter chronically, they know what it is, but a lot of people outside of it don't. So there's this gap between people's understanding of what a credible source is versus what one really is, and especially now when a lot of these media companies, I think Elon Musk bumped up the price for these media entities as well. They have to pay $1,000 or something a month. So and a lot of the companies refuse to pay it as well. So now even something is credible, you don't know it's credible on Twitter, right? So there's this whole lack of education between what's happening versus what really used to happen in the past, right? A lot of people are saying, you know, before Twitter did this, nobody was looking into it. Now Meta is doing Instagram, but I think what Meta did is better than what Twitter did, because anybody could just have pay an $8 thing and get verified. With Instagram, you need to be a real person. You need to, it has to be against your own personal information for you to be, so you can't be anonymous on Instagram if you do have. So if you do share it under a verified account on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram and Facebook, they'll know who you are, and you can track the source of misinformation if you do spread it. So again, it's
that makes more sense, I guess, than Twitter, what Twitter did. But and I guess it's just unfortunate that the Twitter Blue thing came just before the boom of fake information from AI generated images. It's kind of like, that was not a great combination.
And and that again raises the whole question about Twitter again, like the whole misinformation stuff and how it's being spread.
I have said it before though, the community notes are quite good. They're better than they ever have been in Twitter's history.
First hour, it's for hard. People for information like this, it takes time for community notes to be stable, to come to a point where, yes, it is the right. And I agree, community notes are very good. But again, within the first hour of something happening, and that's what Twitter used to be famous for. Remember, like that's where people used to go. That was a source of information, journalists, people on the ground. But now, even after community notes, I think there has to be something in place, some sort of safety guard for news like this. Because again, sure, it took a brief dip, but it was real life impact that started from a fake AI image, which we've been talking about for months and months now. Again, looking forward, if there is not enough education amongst the mass on Twitter and other social media companies, also putting up safety guards, this is going to be a bit of a
and that's why specifically for AI generated images, I think it's important to have those digital watermarks in whatever way. Although I don't know, I don't think it could just be literally a visual watermark. It has to be something within the image that social media platforms can recognize.
So they'll have to work together.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's a story for another day.
Sticking with Twitter, did you see the presidential campaign launch by Ron DeSantis on Twitter Spaces?
No. So I know he's running. I didn't see.
So he had this special arrangement with Twitter to launch his presidential campaign on Twitter Spaces. And as soon as it started, there were like glitches. People were getting logged off. There was like feedback, noise, and there's lots of confusion. And many people were upset about the whole thing. So I don't know how Ron's feeling about that. And this comes up after what the existing people of Twitter, like existing employees, 80% of them were also fired or something like that. I have to check sources on that.
I know what you're saying. So that's the mass firing at the beginning, and then 80%.
And then 80% on top was also laid off or fired, essentially. And again, like this is probably the outcome. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. It could just be a one-off thing. I'm not sure, because I think other Twitter Spaces have been fine, unless it was someone was trying to, get in there and screw it up in the back end.
Who knows? Those things are also.
But I don't know, just the way you described it, it sounded just funny to me. Like, imagine you're so excited about this new presidential, this is feedback and all that stuff.
No, I mean, I haven't listened to it yet, but it would, like, Ron wouldn't have been happy for sure.
Not at all.
We didn't really touch much on this part, but the new potential CEO of Twitter, Linda Yaccarino,
know nothing about.
You don't know anything about. So I know that she was in NBC Universal. She is known within the advertising marketing circuit, in these big, media corporations and stuff. So, but I think it'll be interesting to see when she does take over, how she takes Twitter to the next step, whatever that is. Again, it just seems like there isn't a clear kind of pathway. There was talks about the X X app that Elon had this vision for. Twitter also doing so many other things with, I think there's the subscription model that's, I've been getting a lot of notifications for that. At the end of the day, I think Elon keeps saying that he wants to decrease the number of unregrettable minutes on the app. So I think that's a marker that he uses, that the amount of time you spend on the app, you don't want to regret that afterwards. So if you spend time on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, lots of people say, I shouldn't have wasted my time there. It's just my hours and hours of my life get taken away. So I think he wants that to be not the case for Twitter. So I don't know how that's going to pan out, but it'll be interesting to have an eye out for that.
I think with Elon, he says a lot of things. So if you're going to chart what he's actually trying to do, there's like a lot of noise in there. So I think it would be, good to get someone who has that industry experience, as you said, Universal, NBC, etc., to kind of steer the ship in a concrete direction, no matter what it is, as long as it's not too bad. But I think it's a good move, and hopefully it'll work out.
Sticking with the Elon theme, do you see him sharing the Neuralink stuff?
No.
So just this morning, he shared that they've received FDA's approval to launch their first in-human clinical study. So that basically means that they'll start putting it in humans now, after, I don't know, killing how many monkeys. And basically, they'll start for the clinical trials. The recruitment is not open. They'll announce more information on this, and it just happened this morning. So that will be quite interesting to see how that pans out. So for those who don't know, Neuralink is basically a chip.
a brain implant.
Yeah.
So its first course of usefulness will be to help people with, disabilities, so paraplegics, quadriplegics, etc. So essentially it reads brainwaves and reinterprets them. But the interesting thing is, just a week ago, there was some, not just a few days ago, there was some news made by a Swiss company that had I don't know if it was an EEG or an implant, it must have been an implant, but essentially it used AI to translate human brainwaves and thought patterns into motion. So it was a bridge between a quadriplegic's, maybe severed spinal cord and the AI. So the AI was just a bridge, and the brains. The AI was just this bridge that could allow them to stand up again and walk slowly. But the thing is, I did a video on that company 3 years ago. So it seems like they've just kind of used AI a bit more in the forefront here. So I think we're going to start seeing this just pop up. It's going to be like everyone's going to be like, where did this come from? But it was brewing in the background for a while.
With AI stuff, it does seem like it's getting on that hype cycle now. It's definitely up on there. Similar to what we had with NFTs last year, what we had with blockchain prior, the Web3 stuff in the middle. Obviously, I'm not saying it's the same as those elements, or those things, but the more you start looking into where VCs are turning their attention towards, it's all AI. I was just listening to this episode about this ex-CEO of Tinder. She has her own, and she's done some other stuff. Her resume is very impressive on that front. And she's been working on this almost like a matchmaking AI software.
Sounds very familiar to what she did.
Yeah, but I think it's called Amore AI or something like that. She raised the seed fund within 24 hours, which is very... I mean,
the thing, it makes sense though. Like her previous product was a matchmaking algorithm that was wildly popular. It changed society basically. So she
was the CEO. I don't think she was the co-founder. So she was the CEO at some point. But either way, the fact that it's like what she was describing is that people weren't even sure what she was making at that time, and this was before AI was a thing. She's been working on this for a while now. When I say AI was a thing, I mean the AI was a thing the way we look at it now, as opposed to maybe 8 months ago. So for her to get the amount of attention she's been getting recently has been, in her words, has been nothing that she's seen in the past. Through the NFT cycle and through the whole Web3 stuff, and all the VCs are very much like ready to pour in money, and they're not even sure what they're pouring their money in. Again,
that's a bad sign.
Again, that was similar to what people did with NFTs and Web3 and the whole crypto stuff, right? But I think the difference with AI is that there is proof of concept.
Yeah, but also another difference is like with crypto and NFTs, that was about money only. Yes. It was like investment gambling. It's like crypto is like currency. True. It was about money. So I think this is different because it's an actual tool. And I had this thought when AI started booming like a few months ago. It's kind of like if you're a scammy AI company, you can just like use a ChatGPT API and say, oh, here's our product. It does this, this, and this. But the thing is, it actually kind of works. So it's like different. Like if your specific use case is to do something that involves language, it would be better than it ever has been in the past. From when ChatGPT came out. Before that, this wouldn't be possible. So it's weird because it's like so cheap to implement. It's everywhere, but it works. So how do you reconcile that? I think maybe some of these, I don't know, multi-billion-dollar valuations that these VCs are pumping in, it's probably too much, but there is something that is working. So I think this is fundamentally different to like Web3 with nothing to show for it.
Exactly. And I think the difference is also from the consumer perspective. When we were listening to what NFTs were, what the crypto world is, even now most people still don't understand what it does, what it is. Just simply, when people say, you should invest money on this NFT, and again, like, what is it? Here's a picture of an ape cartoon that you should invest your money on. Like that was the thing. But now you can just go to ChatGPT and then
try it for yourself.
Exactly. Give it a shot, see what it is, and people's reaction to it will be fundamentally different to what it was with the previous hype cycle stuff in the tech world. So this, again, definitely is different. But I think there will be some bad apples out of this, but mostly it seems like there's just we're not even seeing the surface of what this AI revolution is going to bring. I think obviously there's the big companies with Google and Microsoft doing their thing, but there will be so many smaller companies that will take
back off that. Yeah, I think it'll get easier and easier for smaller companies, but I still do think that there will be like 2 or 3 big players and that's it. Like it's really hard to train these things from scratch. Other companies will just buy these models and tweak them and train them. It's even in Google's presentation, even Sam Altman was talking about this before ChatGPT was released. Like that will be the model. It's like you have a base layer and then that model can recognize language, it can recognize events in the world, facts, all this kind of stuff. But then you tweak it towards the medical field by training it on your specific data. But aside from that, since we were talking about crypto, have you noticed Bitcoin is making a bit of a comeback?
So it's due, given its previous cycles. It should have been a while ago. The winter's gone, and we have winter here in Australia. So by now it should have already been.
No, I don't think so. I think it's good that it stayed down for so long because it's such a strong base. It's like if it would have gone to zero, it should have done so already. So like there are still buyers out there, but it's slowly creeping up. And I think this next 3 to 6 months will be very interesting for it. But obviously not investment advice. It's just interesting to watch. After the whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing, everyone thought it was over. Everyone was like, crypto is done. But it hung in there, so it's interesting, you know?
Yeah, for sure. What do you think is the biggest threat to humanity?
Also, a bit of a jump. Ourselves.
I think that's a good answer, but
yeah.
you want to elaborate?
Well, that's a very broad answer, but let me kind of crystallize that. I think we're going to invent so many things that we're not in control of. So if we're talking specifically, probably AI or a nuclear war, because with AI we're going to invent something and we think we're in control, but either we use it wrong or it kind of circumvents our safeguards that we put in. Because even in early testing on the red team for OpenAI, they were saying GPT-4 was getting close to escaping. You know, it didn't do anything malicious, but had some weird behaviors. You know, and that was the baby stages. So in the future, it's only going to get more and more.
Did you see some? I think it was outside of Sam Altman's hearing where people had this no more AGI and like those people.
Right. I didn't see that, but I was listening to some of that hearing, and a lot of the lawmakers were rightly concerned. When asked what kind of industrial revolution will this be? Would it be the printing press where it gives everyone freedom to information, or will it be like the nuclear bomb, which still haunts us till to this day? So it who knows? But so AI, there's a question mark over that. That's one thing. But I think the way the world leaders are acting in terms of rhetoric and not wanting to compromise, and maybe we have some resource issues and there could be some kind of conflict that gets out of control. I think that's another possibility. So I think those are the two immediate threats I see. There could be some other random thing like aliens that come down in 50 years. But
I bring this up because in that podcast episode when she was talking about her AI app, she was saying that she started doing this because she thinks, and this is interesting because it'll tie to one of the videos you're making, is that loneliness is a big issue in terms of what she's seeing, right? And her reasoning of creating this app is that she wants to bridge that gap between a lot of people who are lonely, and the AI will help them initially become a coach in terms of how to approach the other party, right? Interesting fact, and it's on the side point, is that she saw that more men were willing to talk to the AI than to another human being to get relationship advice, which is quite interesting.
It makes sense because they'll be embarrassed, and they'll be free to ask whatever they want. That actually reminds me of something else. So I watched this other video on Twitter. It was a little bit Black Mirror-ish, but anyway, so it was this VR game or situation where obviously you're in a VR helmet and you're at this party, like this house party, there's people all around, and then you have this guy next to you, and everyone in the room is powered by ChatGPT. So you talk, and you're like, oh, who should I talk to? What should I do? And then they give you advice, and then she's like, go and talk to these girls. They seem like they're, bored and not having a good time. So you go up, and then you start talking to the girls, and they're like talking about this stuff, like, oh, I don't like parties. Like, what do you do, etc. And then you learn to talk via those experiences. I guess it's in a way it's cool, but it's like you just zoom out and you're like, what are we doing? Is this what we've come to?
Was this real?
Yes, it's real. Okay, it's like this guy built it. Wow. So ChatGPT powered situational VR experience.
Incredible.
So obviously for video games, awesome.
Yeah.
But this, he said it was literally a confidence training tool.
Like a simulator kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
So which I think could work for some people.
Yeah, I think it's good for some people, but I don't know. There's this cog in the back of my mind.
Which is where I asked that question, and I think what her answer is more aligned to what the biggest threat is. And to me, I think it is loneliness in humans. Because if you think about it, when you don't have community, when you don't have the added support of someone else, of another human being around your life, I think you are more likely to do things that are out
good.
of... Sorry?
I was just going to say not good.
Exactly, not good, right? And I think it's the same thing when you look at world leaders and stuff, because I think when you're at that level of power, even if you've got families and people and yes men around you, I think that also keeps it. I think it gets lonely at the top at some point as well. And I think this is a phrase as well, or you would have heard, like, it gets lonely at the top. So for them as well, they'll be making decisions against the broader or the greater good, as opposed to, because if you think that, there are other people, you lose sense of compassion, you lose a sense of sympathy and empathy for others if you're devoid of those things as well. And I think just taking those lines.
What you said is good reasoning. I think it's a very micro problem that turns into a macro problem in a lot of ways. And it is something that's starting to be recognized, but it's not at the forefront as climate change or a nuclear apocalypse or AI. It's kind of like it's in the background just simmering. We all kind of know about it, but no one's really talking.
And if you think about it, climate change is, again, for those who think that that is a big apocalyptic issue, a catastrophic issue that's going to happen to us, the policymakers are not making the thing because they don't think that it's worth caring about these things, because it could be either they don't believe it or it's going to happen 10, 15 generations down the line, kind of thing.
I would like to disagree with that. I think there has been quite a bit of political action. I think France just banned long-haul flights. Air France did an agreement with the French government. But there's a lot of stuff going on, like the ESG.
There's been changes for sure. My point was more so that the reason why someone wouldn't, at that point of power as a policymaker, wouldn't make those changes because they don't see, again, that they don't have that extension of that empathy to see that, okay, it's going to impact, not going to impact me, it's going to impact
the next
3-4 generations down there, and I don't care about them.
Yeah,
kind of thing, right?
I think that's what the boomers kind of did to us. It's like, I'll be gone by the time.
Hopefully, not a lot of boomers in the listening and the watchers, but,
I think
that's fine. We love boomers.
Yeah, and that's what I love boomers. Well, I don't know why I said that.
Exactly. Again, there's bad apples in every generation. But going back to the whole loneliness thing, it is a bit of a foreshadowing, because you are planning to make a video on that at some point.
Loneliness epidemic. And I think this is a big topic, so it's going to take a lot to distill what points and what beats to say in this story. But I think everyone can relate to it, or know someone, or maybe has felt like that in their life. So I think it'll be personal to a lot of people. And even just going online, you just see it from time to time. Just someone would write a comment, or I actually went down this, sometimes I go down these weird video rabbit holes of people who have less fortunate lives. So, like, stories of people that are paraplegic or whatever, and just listening to their story and how they're dealing with it. But then there was another one where I just went through a whole bunch of videos of talking about how they were lonely. That they had maybe one or two friends or even nobody. And they were just wondering why. And, it's just a horrible existence, essentially. But it's so common. It just seems like it's almost a way of life for a lot of people. And if there's something that could help that, like, obviously technology can help in a small way, but it would be great to have a grassroots, like, societal change in how we, deal with that.
Yeah, because technology with, the content creation and stuff like that, where you do have a parasocial relationship with the creator, that has decreased for some people. They don't feel lonely as much, but that's a one-way kind of relationship still. Okay, not much of a segue into this, but you could say it is in some ways, like, it's human connections. But have you seen China creating GriefBots?
GriefBots?
Yeah, that's what they're calling. So they're using AI to raise the dead, and it gives people one last chance to say goodbye. And again, this is not a new concept. We touched on speaking to people who have passed, those
Black
startup,
Mirror,
Black Mirror stuff. We've covered that in previous episodes. But recently, a Chinese software engineer in Hangzhou, I think his name is Yu Jialin. Forgive me if I'm butchering the name, but essentially he has created, like, this GriefBot using a computer program to match lip movements with speech recordings of the existing person, and that'll give people a chance to speak to someone they kind of recreate within the software, and then have a conversation with them. Now, whether it's used for one last conversation and then you don't touch it ever again, or is it for a way to simply grieve or make the grieving easier. That's I'm not sure, but that's kind of like a concept that's been going around, especially with the generative AI that's gaining traction around the world and in China. People are simply, getting into this thing. Somebody else actually created one for their grandmother, and it just mimics his dead grandmother, where it basically talks and feels good in terms of communicating. Now, psychologists in the past actually often allow their clients to grieve. I don't know if you've seen this in movies and stuff, but generally they would say, talk to this imaginary person sitting on the table or on the chair, and they allow the person to have that conversation with someone who've passed, right? So even as a concept, it's actually not new, but then to actually see that person and have that interaction.
There's two things. Overall, I just like to say I haven't really been in this position, so I can't really judge how it would feel.
Yeah.
But I guess if it says something wrong or something that doesn't align to what you believe that person would say, I think that jarring nature could have a magnified negative effect. But I don't know. Maybe just let people do what they want. I don't know about this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we won't know until we let it out on the loose, kind of thing. So again, we'll probably see more of these things in the coming years, months,
days.
Who knows? One thing you shared with me over the week was how the UK company BT is planning to slash 55,000 jobs, with 10,000 being replaced by AI by the end of the decade. This is again joining IBM, who we talked about last week, who are on nearly 7,800 jobs which could be replaced by AI, and it's giving this concept of AI anxiety, this new term that's been going around over the last few months. It's basically the fear that either AI will kill us all the way to the point of AI replacing our livelihoods, right? And it makes sense because, again, it does feel like this impending kind of revolution.
Speaking of which, so I got an email from 11 Labs yesterday, and they were like, hey, do you want to try out our software? It'll make your job so much easier. We can clone your voice. It'll be real, so you can spend more time doing whatever you want. And I was like, man, it's coming for me. But I don't think, I'm not going to do that, guys. It's going to always be me talking. But it's just like every facet of every job. If it's not there yet, it soon will be. And it's just, we've never had anything like that. It's like, cars took away buggies, but there was always this and that. But this is just like everything,
Just on the stats side of things, World Economic Forum, they predict that 85 million jobs will be replaced by AI by 2025. But they also said that 97 million new jobs will likely be created by AI.
People say that, but where? I don't prompt engineers. What else?
No, this is I think we covered as well last time around as well. Is you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. Because there's other things again with I don't know, like typewriting, for example, right? Like that was a big thing at the time. As soon as it became more available, other things, like data entering became a new thing, right? Where because more people were able to type, that job was created. There was more accessible. I remember the 90s, it was a big thing, being able to type was I know.
You had the typing things in school, typing classes, but I'd love to know the data and what kind of jobs they're thinking of, because I struggle to imagine. Obviously, we can't imagine, but it's just because I keep coming back to it, because AI does cognitive work, cognitive labor. It doesn't seem like we can do much. Unless we're interfacing with the AI in the creative sense, giving it direction in things that it cannot do, eventually it's going to be able to do that or learn from us. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how I feel.
I think what we need to do is read the report that...
Yeah, if I'd love to, as I said, I'd love to see the data of what they think these new jobs could be.
Yeah. I think that'll be a worthwhile read, and then maybe coming back next week and seeing us dissect it a little bit better than us just kind of going off the rails in some ways. But one story I wanted to kind of talk about, this is something we covered early last year, or when we basically just started doing the podcast, was about Netflix planning to really stop password sharing, and now they've started rolling it out everywhere, where they have basically said that you can only let people share an account if they live in the same household, or you pay an extra fee. And the fees basically start at $7.99 per person, but there's also limits of how many outside people you can add depending on the plan you're on. You can't add extra members if you're on the cheapest two plans. You can only add extra person if you're on the second most expensive plan. And if you're on the most expensive plan, then you can add 2 extra people. And if you have the highest tier plan and 2 extra members, it'll be roughly $40 a month. So that's basically shared between 3 people, which comes down to roughly $13 or $14 per person. So
I think, I don't know. It's not the old days when Netflix was the only thing in town. They already are heavily criticized for cancelling shows early or just not having the greatest content. It's in a sea of muck. It takes a while to find what you want. So I don't think they have the upper hand in this situation. I think a lot of people may just say, hey, I might just cancel. But then again, I don't live in a family with multiple people that want to share the account, so I can't really speak to how you would walk through that. But I think, they might see a bit of a ding in their subscription numbers.
I was just looking at their market summary over the last couple of years, and obviously in 2022 they took a huge dip, with the war happening in Ukraine, and also them announcing all the password sharing stuff. There was also shows canceling, lots of stuff. You obviously did a video on that, but then it's been picking up towards the late last year up until now. It's a slow growth, but there has been growth, which again tells me, like, are these companies just too big?
Yeah, if you have, I don't know, like, I would like to think that the investor euphoria has worn off from the 2020 to 2021 and a half boom. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why the stock is rising. I don't know, because the sentiment I'm getting is like everyone's kind of sick of Netflix, and the only reason they have it is because they just always did. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think, again, I feel some of these companies are a little bit too big and have some sort of safety rails in terms of pleasing their shareholders. And I think that's what at the end of the day determines these numbers, right? So even if sometimes it might feel from the crowd that things aren't going well, but there are little things that they still have up their sleeve kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we have to check those sneaky share buybacks. Yeah, they're doing that.
That's it, right? And of course they've got a few shows lined up, like Stranger Things and Black Mirror, the all-time favorites.
If they get completed, Stranger Things has been halted due to the writer's strike.
Yeah, so that again still comes up sometime this year, in the next few months. But after that's done, I don't know. That's when maybe things we'll start.
At least 2 shows.
Everything relies on these 2 shows for Netflix, and after that, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Look. I think more market competition is good. So it's good that the landscape has changed from when they were first here. But as for the stock price, it's just a mystery. We'll have to dig into that one.
Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to quickly talk to you about the next video that's coming up, and the Sam Altman video. So do you want to maybe just give a quick update as to why you chose to do that specific video?
Well, obviously, we all know AI is going crazy at the moment. So people are talking about ChatGPT this, Microsoft, OpenAI this, Google, but very few people know who Sam Altman is, obviously the co-founder and creator of OpenAI. So this video was just to give a rundown of, his upbringing, who he is, his philosophies and, intuitions on AI, how he came up with the idea of OpenAI, all of those questions that this is like we're on the verge of a world changing, or he has changed the world already, but it's like, it's so new that no one's really done a good piece on him. So that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Do you think he gives off a little bit of Zuckerberg vibes?
Only in appearances. Because, I guess his demeanor, yes. But in terms of his thinking, I guess his thinking as well, it's very logical, robotic, and mechanical. But I think Altman is a bit more human, slightly. I can agree with that. Overall,
from whatever clips that I've seen of him, it does seem like he's he's got that. He does have that tunnel vision into making things bigger and grander for technology in some ways. It does seem like he's got a goal in mind that he wants to achieve, and that's something I've seen with other founders and tech founders and tech CEOs as well. But it also seems like he's dabbling in other things as well. Did you see that he's also looking into this WorldCoin cryptocurrency, something like that? No.
I must have missed that. WorldCoin cryptocurrency sounds like OneCoin by Dr. Ruja Ignatova.
Okay, so OpenAI Sam Altman raises $115 million for WorldCoin crypto project. The Tools for Humanity, the team behind WorldCoin, it's raised $115 million. The crypto-focused project was co-founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman with a 3-part mission: create a global ID, a global currency, and an app that enables payment, purchases, and transfers using its token alongside other cryptocurrencies and traditional assets. Now, it seems like he's also going to take a step back into the crypto world because it just happened this week. I don't know if he was trying this, trying to raise money for the last, 2 years, and only after his profile went up, he got the approval. Yeah. I don't know if that's the case. We have to dig into that, but it's, things like
this strikes me as odd. But anyway, go on.
But things like this is what tells me that he's not just focused on one thing specifically, but in a wider kind of approach, almost like Elon Musk-ish, where it's just not on one thing. But the grander tunnel vision is to make things better on a more global scale.
Yeah, I guess you could say so, but he's had very other interesting projects, like, for example, has put a lot of investment into nuclear energy because he believes that that's kind of the future, and a lot of fission and fusion companies is investing in. But also, from his start, like the Y Combinator stuff, he was like, Reddit even. He was the CEO for a little bit, which most people don't know. And he helped that company raise a lot of money and kind of turned it around. But he's been in a lot of places, He's had this profile that's big in Silicon Valley, but wasn't really known outside of that. And then ever since, obviously, OpenAI and ChatGPT broke out, then everyone's like, oh, who is this guy? But he's been around. He's been here. So I don't know, this crypto stuff, though, I'm not so crash hot about that. But
obviously, you've been researching him for a while now, but what has been the most surprising element of his profile that you thought that struck to you as surprising?
Probably the fact that he's a prepper. So he is adamant that the world will suffer some kind of calamity. And interestingly, what he said in 2016 was because I think it was a Dutch company isolated the H5N1 virus and made it super contagious and potent, the chances of a global pandemic in the next 20 years is now non-zero. So I will be prepping. And obviously we all know what happened after that. So
he's worth listening to him.
Yeah, so he was bang on about that. But yeah, he seems to really think about things that are uncomfortable and really just dig into it. Like he also said a nuclear apocalypse from AIs fighting over, attacking countries because of scarce resources was another reason for his prepping. But, things like that. It's like he is smart, but he loves going into dark territory sometimes to see what he can do to make that better. So I think that's quite unique.
It'll be interesting to see older conversations between him and Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is also a co-founder of OpenAI. So was he co-founder or was he an early investor?
He was literally a co-founder. So OpenAI was like a collective of people that were worried about AI, and they came together and put in money, and so he and Elon Musk were
worried about AI. Well, I wonder how that's going for Elon now.
Yeah. So Elon actually recently made a statement saying, if it wasn't for me, OpenAI wouldn't exist, which is kind of true, but it's kind of like the guy that left and it's like, oh, I remember me, I was there as well.
Walter White. The
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Yeah, his story when he had that
the big science
experiment or whatever that eventually his partner took it and made it bigger, and he was not a part of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully Elon doesn't break bad. He's probably already
Elon is fine. He's got money. Apparently he was out partying in some random club somewhere.
My friend was there. She was sending me snaps of Elon just partying.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What was it like?
I mean, I didn't ask him and stuff because he's quite private that way. But yeah, he was sending me snaps of him there, and I was like, oh, okay, hanging out with Elon.
That's so interesting. I'm tempted to go on a tangent about celebrities doing just surprising people at random, like low-key events, but let's not get into that.
Just do it.
Okay. Well, so apparently Daniel Johns from Silverchair, he's going around at random bars just playing, like unannounced, no one knows. He's just there playing, and it's like kind of reminds me of what Dave Chappelle used to do, like when he had that hiatus, was just going random comedy places, and that would be so cool. It's like you're not doing it for the fame or the money; it's just because you love it. Like that's the best thing. But anyway, that's a random.
Look, I'm gonna go into some comments now before we end today's show. So thank you again for everyone who commented on the last episode. It was really awesome to see. You guys appreciate the intro. Some more than others, but most people seemed to like it, so that's great. We're sticking on the Monday upload schedule. We're doing this stuff still on recording on a Friday, but there will be a few days gap from the point it's recorded to it's uploaded. So if you have already heard some of this news, I guess
can't do anything. Well, not in the future. Yeah, not in the future.
Unless AI.
I saw a video title about that. Can AI predict the future? But anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are people talking about stock markets and stuff as well.
That's what worries me. That's another. We never talked about it, I don't think. But yeah, AI and stock markets. Huh?
No, we didn't talk about that.
We didn't?
No.
Yeah. But AI and stock markets, like, it's kind of just maths and data, a whole bunch of it. So we'll see.
Okay, so one comment is from Mahmoud Muhiz 1073. It says, thank you to both Tawsif and Dagogo. Listening to your podcast for a long time now. Thanks for listening. I've got a question to ask. After seeing all your music videos, Dagogo, I often notice that you use 90s style clips. Is it because you think it's nostalgic? I like those times even though I was not born then. By the way, Nostalgia Dreams is my favorite. So basically he's asking, on your music videos and on your ColdFusion videos, you use a lot of 90s style clips. What's the reason?
I think it just suits the music, honestly. But I do have a soft spot and I guess an affinity towards that. I think it's the aesthetic of it also is quite particular. It's something that stands out from a lot of things today. So sometimes looking through that footage, you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. Like, I love that design, or I love how that was shot, etc. So it's a mixture of aesthetics and I guess suitability to the music. But I'm just a sucker for it.
Yeah, and I think as a viewer of your stuff, and once we started working together, the first thing I asked you is like, what's the style of the videos that you want to create for ColdFusion? And you said you want to mimic something from the 80s and 90s in terms of documentary stuff that they had back then. I think that shows in your work as well. And I think, obviously paired with your relaxing, soothing kind of approach to these things, I think it's just a good pairing. But it's funny because that's only one aspect of the 80s and 90s, because if you look at a lot of the other mainstream stuff, obviously in the 80s you had the whole pop color, the Stranger Things stuff. You had the metal revolution. The 90s had the whole pop revolution as well with Madonna and whatnot. And so that stuff also exists, but somehow your stuff is almost like a reaction to those things that kind of went under the radar, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it's a subset. So like some of my favorite 90s genres like shoegaze and whatnot, they were all kind of this
underground.
This underground stuff. And I found that like the coolest, It's just like, I don't know. It's just got this esoteric otherworldly connection that I have. I don't know. But but with the documentary stuff, it's like 80s and 90s documentaries specifically, because there were no fast-paced, like crazy text over what the voiceover is saying and like cuts every 2 seconds, So I think it was a good foundation to build off.
So last question before we wrap up. It's asked by Mark Miller, and he asks, this is based on the conversation we had last week about TikTok and how it's fully pushing certain stuff for entertainment, and you've got YouTube as well. So he says that entertainment is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we do have YouTube, which is kind of used for education by many young folks. So TikTok is purely for entertainment, which is not necessarily a problem. It's true that there's a lot of misinformation on TikTok, and I think they should do a much better job with moderation on that platform. But overall, he doesn't see it as a big issue in terms of entertainment versus education, as we have two different things for them.
Well, I'd like to preface this by saying this is all my opinion. I think that's fine that we can have a platform that's just for education and one that's just for entertainment. But, well, I guess YouTube is not just for education. But I think with TikTok and a lot of these short form content platforms, the problem that I have is it's literally made to be disposable in a way. So it's like you watch a lot of them, and for that 30 minutes you're entertained, but how many videos have you seen in 30 minutes? Like 30 times, probably like 60 videos or something. So the issue with that is like we probably, unless it's super good, we don't really retain that much information, and it's a barrage of this, I guess, fast-paced McDonald's disposable content. And I guess that, as what we just talked about earlier with my inspirations of where I got, the style of ColdFusion from, it's like the diametrically opposed opposite. So it's like my content, if I do it right, is supposed to last for a long time. It's supposed to be something that is a historical record of what we've been through. But these videos are just like pumped out here and there, and they're forgotten. And it's kind of yucky in a way. It makes me feel a bit, So that's just my opinion. It's not like people are free to like what they like.
Yeah.
And if they get something out of it, that's good. But it's just...
I am a big consumer of short-form content, and
I know, you're the opposite to me.
Yeah, no. But like, I agree to an extent with you, like despite being a consumer of that content, because I feel that short-form stuff like TikTok and Reels and whatnot, they don't retain your attention for the creator, but only for what you're seeing on that specific screen real estate. Like, that's it, dispose, as I said, move on to the next, something else, move on to the next. Because the amount of times I've seen like a specific style of content from a creator, it would take me plenty of times for me to see that until I realize that it's by the same creator, or for it to be fed to me via algorithm, or because even if you follow, you don't see it regularly, you have to go to the profile and whatnot. So this constant, almost like changing channel kind of approach towards short form content is difficult for sustaining as a career for creators, but also as a consumer, you just move on to the next, move on to the next, move on to the next. So I think it's got its place, but again, as a sustainable thing, because it depends on creators generating this content. I really don't know how far it'll go without really, changing the way behaviors of creators.
I think it's twofold. So on the creator side, you're pushing out all this content, but it doesn't really give you a following. And then when you get a following, the first thing you want to do is go to another platform that allows for you to stay there, because you can't make money on it because there's no way to insert ads into 30-second clips. And on the other side, there's the companies, and these companies can't make money from it. So why are they going to continue?
Because there is actually a lot of educational stuff on TikTok. Like there's science talk, there's book talk. There's just names that they've given it. And if you actually seek out good educational content, you'll get it. It'll get on TikTok.
Yeah.
So that exists, but it's just I guess for you, as you mentioned as well, it's more so the way you're consuming it, and for the creator and how they're producing it, and the sustainability of it.
Yeah. So I guess that's where we'll wrap it up today. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of it, and we'll see you again soon for the next episode. Cheers.